We're talking about the Exway Flex Part 2. Got my hands on some additional videos and photos, so let's talk about it. Hello and welcome to the channel, and welcome to part 2 about the Exway Flex. You know what? I'm excited to bring you guys this one because I was able to get my hands on some additional photos and videos, which I'm going to show to you guys as well. So I'm going to go through my phone and just kind of discuss the pictures and the videos as we go through it, and then you'll have a chance to see it as well because I'm going to put it up on the screen. So the very first thing that I kind of want to talk about is this deck. So they finally released some actual specs and information about the deck. We all knew that it was going to be a flexi deck, but we didn't know what it was going to be made of. So they released that this is a highly advanced concave deck design. So good. Concave is good. Helps keep your feet locked in. And then this is the thing that really stood out here. It said that perfect balance of flex and stability. And I really hope that this is the case, because this is probably one of the things I'm most fascinated by about this board is the flex and whether or not it has a good amount of flex but also some rigidity to it. Because some board companies, when they went with the flex, as I mentioned in my first video, I feel like they went overboard and they made the decks just too flexy. And I have some of the guys that I ride with here in the ATL, they have different boards, and some of them regularly talk about and complain a little bit about how some of the decks are just a little too flexy. And it's fascinating to hear that when they say that, because even some of these guys are lighter guys. You know, they're not even necessarily heavy. So I'm really curious to know if Exway was able to come up with the perfect amount of flex, with the perfect amount of rigidness to get the, you know, the overall perfect deck. The other thing that I kind of like what they said, it says carbonized bamboo reinforced with fiberglass. So that's the material. And then it says symmetrical micro tail design. I like that tail, because those come in handy when you're trying to pick the board up. So you can actually pick the board up without actually having to bend over. You can kind of step on the end and lift the board up. And then they went with the shock absorbing grip tape as well, which is good. So all of these things combined hopefully should make for a really smooth ride. All right, the next thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to show it to you guys, is these trucks, man. These trucks look very good. Exway is going with their own trucks, and they're calling them Trish trucks. And the interesting thing is that Exway is actually going away from Seismic trucks, which is a name brand truck. And this is pretty fascinating because a lot of other companies are actually using name brand trucks with their decks and their boards. And I wouldn't say this is necessarily out of the ordinary what Exway is doing, because Boosted actually went away from using some other trucks and is actually manufacturing their own trucks. So that's what appears like what Exway is doing here. But nevertheless, when you look at these trucks, I love the attention to the detail of what I'm seeing here, particularly these orange trucks. The cutouts look very cool. It just looks like it has a lot of attention to detail there. It might also help with the reduction of weight as well. We don't know, but it just kind of just going off of what I'm seeing here in the pictures. But they look like they're quality from what we can see. The other thing I like is that the little device that actually holds the bushings in place, if you look at them, you can see that it actually has Exway engraved on it. And one of the things that I like, and I'm sure that U.S. consumers like, is the attention to detail on things. It's like Apple is really good at this. When you purchase something from Apple, they pay so much attention to the detail and the packaging that when you spend that money, you feel like, yeah, I'm glad I spent it on this product. So when I see that Exway is taking that attention to details on something as simple as that little piece there and engraving their names on there, you can't help but like something like that. So that's pretty cool as well. All right, let's keep it moving. So the next thing I want to talk about is the actual deck itself. So initially when Exway released pictures and things like that of the board, you could tell it was like pictures created in computerized picture images. So they recently released some images, and I have some as well that I got my hands on. And when you look at these images, you can actually see the detail of the enclosures. You can see what the bottom of the deck looks like. And one of the things that I'm really liking about how the deck look is the sleek design of it. Even though they increased the battery size, they tried to make the enclosures still look very sleek, very aerodynamic looking. and they look custom, which is very good as well. And I guess that goes back to that attention to detail. They look custom. They don't look like it was just something that was manufactured somewhere, cut and dry, and that any other manufacturer can get their hands on that. These enclosures look pretty custom for the most part. I'm looking at what appears to be the power button in the middle. I don't know if that's the power button or the charge port, but I like the way that looks there because it's actually very accessible and easy to get to. So that looks really good. And speaking of the trucks, in one of these images here, it looks like the bushings on the it looks like the front and the rear truck. You can see that it appears like they're going with like a thicker bushing. And one of the things that some people complained about with the Exway Pro Riot was that the motors at times, if you leaned hard enough on the board, would actually hit the deck. And that was especially could be the case if you were a heavier rider. So when I'm looking at this, it looks like they kind of put thicker bushings in there, which could kind of help with keeping the motors and things like that from touching the deck. So now that that looks good there. The ESC looks very good. Very aerodynamic looking. Just looks very good. The other thing I want to kind of talk about is the shape of this deck. I really like the shape of this deck, and it also looks like one of the things that they did as well was really contour the deck so that to help avoid wheel bite. And a lot of times if you're using standard wheels, you're not going to get wheel bite, but this is the key. A lot of people like to upgrade their wheels. Some people like to I know that my current Exway, it came with I think 85 millimeter wheels on it. So some people like to upgrade them or get larger wheels. 90 millimeter wheels, 95, 100 millimeter wheels, even put all-terrain type wheels on there. And you see, when you do that, now you've increased the size, and now you've increased the likelihood that you might actually, the deck might hit the wheels. So how it appears like the way Exway did the cutout of the deck around the front and the rear truck, it looks like in most instances, it looks like you can almost put any type of wheel on there and you may not have to worry about that. I'm sure if you put something just way too big, yeah, that might be an issue. But it looks like they've addressed that for wheels that, like, if you wanted to go to a 90 or a 96 or something like that, from what we can see here. So that looks good as well. I'm also looking at this one picture that I have with the board kind of leaned up against like an edge. And it's interesting that even though it's like up on this edge, it seems like the board is sitting high enough to where the enclosures are not scratching. And you see, this could be part of what I was talking about a little bit earlier about how it looks like the bushing is set up to give it to make the board sit up a little bit higher. So I like the way that looks as well. And it looks like the way the motors are mounted as well. They don't appear to be as close to the deck as well. So that whole wheel bite and motor mounts and stuff like that hitting the deck, that looks like that's improved as well on the board. So that looks very, very good. So I guess the next thing we could talk about here is these motors and the belts. From what it looks like here, these belts look like they are thicker than the belts that came with the Riot. One of the things that people were really talking about when the Riot came out was like, why are the belts so thin? Why do these belts look so thin on the board? And from what it looks like, they went with a much thicker belt. It looks like the belt is maybe about the same size as the competitors out there. I would say it looks like almost double the width of the belt that was on a Riot. So it looks like it's about the same size as the belt like of maybe a boosted board or some of the other competitors that are out there. So that looks really cool there. I wonder if that's going to help that probably will help with wear and tear, but I'm assuming that they also did this because they haven't released any information about the actual motor specs. But from what it looks like in these pictures, and you can look at it as well with me, it looks like the motors are a little bit bigger than the motors on the Riot. And that's just me looking at this video. It may not be, but it looks like it may be. And then speaking of the motors, you know, they still have the motor covers. Those look good as well. And then, you know, you can also see in the image how the system is still set up to be swappable. And you can see the tips of the wires. Looks like they just plug in like exactly how the Exway was. How it's easy to plug it in, so you don't have to go disconnecting the ESC and anything like that to connect anything. So that's, I mean, really game changing. You know, once again, I talked about that in the first video, but it's really game changing. I like how it looks like the boards are going to come with the orange wheels standard in stock. I actually just switched out my Exway wheels and I actually put on the clear ones. The black ones look cool, but they just look, you know, standard. But when I put the clear ones on, it gives the board a whole new look. And actually, I like the way the orange looks because it pops even harder. So I like the way that looks as well. I mean, I think the board is looking good. I'm looking, okay, finally, let's look at this last image that I have here, and you can see how the board is designed. You can see the kicktail, and they kept the same little small arrow on the front of the board, so you would recognize immediately like this is the front of the board. You know, this is probably especially needed for the Exway, well, at least the first version of the Exway, where everything was encased inside the deck, because there sometimes, like, if you just, you know, when you know your board, you know it, but like when you first get the board, you know, the first Exway, with everything being encased in the deck, it could be hard to mistake which one is the front and the back. This is especially the case like if you don't have the belt-driven system, where you have the hub system. You know, people that had the board for a while, you'll be able to recognize, but it looks like they kept that. I love this kicktail. I like the overall shape of the deck itself. I like the kicktail. Be able to pull the board up easily. Looks really good. Overall, I'm really excited about the board. One of the things I wish I could see on here, and you can't see it that well, I wonder if they put like a outlet on the actual battery, like a lot of boards are doing now, so that you can charge like your phone or the remote and things like that. You know, I'm looking at one of these images here, and it looks like there's something at the top of the battery, like there may be ports or something there. You can't get a really good look of it, but it looks like there may be like a port or something in the front of the board there, where you might be able to charge it. And that would be pretty cool, because a lot of people like that, not only for the ability to charge, but it makes it easy to wire. If you want to add LED lights on the bottom of your board, you can get LED lights that have the USB port and plug it in. I actually have someone I ride with in the Atlanta area, and they did that exact same thing. They put the strip lights on there, and they used the USB port to plug it right into the battery. So when they want to ride with their lights, they just plug it right in. Overall, I'm excited about the board. I hope these images and things like that in the video give you some additional insight about the board as well. But like I said, I'm excited to see with this board what the capabilities are. It's my understanding that they're going to be starting pre-orders pretty soon, probably in the next couple of weeks, and that they anticipate actually, I guess, shipping boards or sending them out to people March, April, or something like that. But you know how those things go. Things change, things shift. But it would make sense for it to be March, April, because that's when the seasons turn and it starts to get warm and people start to do more outdoor activities, and that includes skateboarding and things like that. So I hope that this was a helpful video for you. Once again, based on what you see with the board, what are you liking the most? From what you saw in the images, does it look like there's some ports at the top of the battery? You know, maybe I'm reaching there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said before, what is standing out most to you? What are you most excited to see? Have you heard any additional information that I didn't get a chance to mention in the video? Have you seen some additional pictures and videos? Throw something below. Let's all talk about it. Let's share our wealth of information. As always, I see at the top because the bottom is too crowded. Peace. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Holla at you.